The summer nights may live forever in our hearts. But the magic that brought us Grease 1978 came with a devastating cost. Behind the leather jackets, poodle skirts, and timeless songs lies a heartbreaking truth. 10 beloved actors who made us believe in teenage dreams and endless summers have taken their final bow. From the T-Birds to the Pink Ladies, from faculty to diner staff, death has claimed stars who once made us laugh, cry, and sing along. Their tragic departures remind us that even the most joyful stories can't protect us from life's cruelest plot twists. Olivia Newton-John, Sandy Olsen. When Olivia Newton-John transformed from innocent Sandy Olsen into leather-clad temptress in the final moments of Grease, audiences witnessed one of cinema's most iconic character changes, but they had no idea they were watching a woman who would later transform herself into one of the world's most courageous cancer fighters. Newton-John's portrayal of Sandy wasn't just acting, it was the performance that would define her career and give her a platform to inspire millions during the darkest chapter of her own life. Newton-John almost never became Sandy at all, which makes her legendary performance even more remarkable. Born in Cambridge, England on September 26, 1948, she moved with her family to Melbourne, Australia when she was just 5 years old. Her father was a professor who had worked on the secret Enigma project during World War II, and music ran through her family, though Newton-John discovered her gift by accident when she started singing in local clubs as a teenager. By the mid-1970s, Newton-John had already achieved significant success as a recording artist, with hits like, which won her a Grammy Award in 1974. When producer Alan Carr approached her about starring in Grease in 1976, Newton-John's first reaction was to say no because she was 29 years old and felt completely wrong for the role of a 17-year-old American high school student. But John Travolta drove to her Malibu home to convince her personally, and after a successful screen test, she agreed to take the role. Grease became a cultural phenomenon that changed Newton-John's life completely, grossing over $396 million worldwide and becoming the highest-grossing musical film of its time. Her duets with Travolta became massive hits, while her solo performance of Hopelessly Devoted to You earned an Academy Award nomination. Following Grease, her 1981 album, Physical, produced the title track that became the biggest hit of the 1980s, spending 10 weeks at #1. Everything changed for Newton-John in 1992 when she was diagnosed with breast cancer the same weekend her father died. The diagnosis came after she felt something wasn't right during a routine checkup, a small lump that hurt, even though her mammogram came back negative. Newton-John underwent a modified radical mastectomy with immediate breast reconstruction, followed by nearly a year of chemotherapy, but she approached her cancer battle with hope and determination. The cancer returned in 2013 as a tumor in her shoulder, then came back again in 2017, spreading to the base of her spine. On August 8, 2022, Newton-John died peacefully at her ranch in Southern California at the age of 73, surrounded by family and friends. She had lived 30 years after her initial diagnosis and used that time to establish the Olivia Newton-John Cancer Wellness and Research Center in Melbourne, helping countless other lives while showing millions how to face life's greatest challenges with grace and hope. Jeff Conaway, Kaniki Murdoch. Jeff Conaway brought a swagger and charm to Kaniki Murdoch that made him the perfect best friend to John Travolta's Danny Zuko. But the role that launched his career also contained the seeds of his destruction. During the filming of the Greased Lightning musical number, Conaway fell while dancing on top of a car and injured his back, an accident that would lead him down a path of prescription drug addiction that ultimately cost him his life 33 years later. Born Jeffrey Charles William Michael Conaway on October 5, 1950, in Manhattan, New York, he was practically raised in the theater world since his parents were both performers. His father Charles was an actor, producer, and publisher, while his mother Helen taught music at New York City's Brooke Conservatory under the stage name Mary Ann Brooks. When his parents divorced and he was just 3 years old, Conaway went to live with his mother and 2 older sisters, spending some time with his grandparents in South Carolina, which gave him a slight Southern accent that would help him land his first Broadway role. At just 10 years old, Conaway accompanied his mother to a casting call for director Arthur Penn's Broadway play, All the Way Home, and landed a featured role as one of 4 boys in the Pulitzer Prize-winning production, which ran for over 300 performances from 1960 to 1961. He stayed with the show for its entire run and then toured with the national company, beginning a theatrical career that would eventually lead him to the original Broadway cast of Grease, where he served as an understudy to several roles, including the lead male character Danny Zuko, eventually taking over the role from Barry Bostwick. When the film version of Grease was being cast, Conaway naturally expected to reprise his Broadway role as Danny Zuko, but the producers chose his friend and former castmate John Travolta for the lead instead, offering Conaway the supporting role of Kenickie. Despite the disappointment of losing the starring role, Conaway made Kenickie his own, creating an unforgettable character who was tough on the outside but loyal to his friends, and his chemistry with Stockard Channing's Rizzo added depth to the T-Birds and Pink Ladies romance storylines. The success of Grease in 1978 immediately led to another major opportunity when Conaway was cast as Bobby Wheeler, the handsome but dim-witted struggling actor who moonlights as a taxi driver on the hit television series Taxi. The show premiered in the fall of 1978 and became a critical and commercial success, running for 5 seasons and earning numerous Emmy nominations. Conaway's portrayal of the vain, aspiring actor who constantly faced rejection and disappointment resonated with audiences and showcased his comedic timing and dramatic range. However, beneath the surface success, Conaway was already struggling with the prescription painkillers he had been prescribed for his back injury from Grease, and his addiction gradually worsened throughout the early 1980s. His personal life became increasingly unstable, and his drug problems began affecting his work on Taxi. Writer Sam Simon later recalled finding Conaway in his dressing room too high on drugs to perform, and the producers realized they could divide his dialogue among other cast members without significantly impacting the show, leading to his departure after the 3rd season in 1981. Conaway's career never fully recovered from his early exit from Taxi. Though he continued working steadily in television and film throughout the 1980s and 1990s, including a notable role as security chief Zach Allen on the science fiction series Babylon 5 from 1994 to 1999. By the mid-2000s, his addiction had become public knowledge when he appeared on VH1's Celebrity Fit Club, but was forced to leave due to a drug relapse. And in 2008, he appeared on Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew, where viewers witnessed his deteriorating condition firsthand. On May 11, 2011, Conaway was found unconscious in his home, possibly for as long as 10 hours, and was rushed to the hospital where he was placed in a medically induced coma due to pneumonia and sepsis. His condition was complicated by years of prescription drug abuse, which had weakened his immune system and prevented him from recognizing how severely ill he had become. After more than 2 weeks on life support, his family made the difficult decision to remove him from life support on May 26, and Conaway died the following morning, May 27, 2011, at the age of 60. Jeff Conaway's story serves as a tragic reminder of how a single moment can change the course of a life, and how addiction can slowly destroy even the most talented and promising individuals. While his struggle with drugs overshadowed his later years, those who knew him remembered a gentle soul who loved to perform and brought joy to audiences through his memorable characters, from the swagger of Kenickie to the hapless optimism of Bobby Wheeler. Annette Charles Cha-Cha de Gregorio. Annette Charles may have had only a few minutes of screen time in Grease, but her sultry portrayal of Charlene Cha-Cha de Gregorio became one of the film's most memorable moments, especially when she stole Danny Zuko away from Sandy during the nationally televised dance contest, with her confident declaration that she was the best dancer at St. Bernadette's. What audiences never knew was that Charles filmed some of her most challenging scenes while enduring excruciating pain from an ectopic pregnancy, demonstrating a dedication to her craft that would later carry her through a completely different but equally demanding career as a respected college professor. Born Annette Cardona on March 5, 1948, in Los Angeles, California, Charles was of Mexican and Italian ancestry and grew up in a city where the entertainment industry was always within reach. From an early age, she showed a natural talent for performing, particularly dancing, which would become her ticket into Hollywood. She began appearing in television shows and films throughout the 1970s, taking on small but memorable roles that showcased her striking screen presence and ability to command attention even in brief appearances. Charles worked steadily throughout the decade before Grease, appearing in popular television series including The Flying Nun, Gunsmoke, Mod Squad, Bonanza, Barnaby Jones, and The Bionic Woman. She also had roles in films and made appearances that helped establish her as a reliable character actress who could bring depth and authenticity to supporting roles. Her experience and professionalism made her an ideal choice when casting directors were looking for someone who could make Cha-Cha both alluring and slightly dangerous in just a few key scenes. The role of Cha-Cha in Grease became Charles's career-defining moment, even though it represented only a small portion of the film's runtime. As the girlfriend of Leo Craterface Balmuto, leader of the rival Scorpions gang, Cha-Cha was positioned as both a romantic threat to Sandy and a symbol of the more experienced, streetwise world that Danny inhabited when he wasn't trying to impress his innocent summer love. Charles brought a perfect combination of confidence, sensuality, and just enough menace to make Cha-Cha unforgettable, particularly in the hand-jive dance sequence where she partnered with John Travolta's Danny Zuko. What made Charles's performance even more remarkable was the physical pain she endured during filming, particularly during the Thunder Road drag race sequence where careful observers can notice her frequently leaning against cars. Charles was suffering from an ectopic pregnancy, a dangerous condition where the fertilized egg grows in the fallopian tube rather than the uterus, causing severe pain and requiring immediate medical attention. Despite the agony she was experiencing, Charles received clearance from her doctor to complete the scene and push through the filming, rushing to the hospital for emergency surgery immediately after the director called "cut." Following the success of Grease, Charles continued working in television and film, appearing in projects such as the epic miniseries Centennial and the biographical film Can You Hear the Laughter?, the story of Freddie Prinze. However, unlike some of her Grease co-stars, Charles found that the film's popularity did not translate into a major career boost, and her screen appearances began to dwindle in the early 1980s. One of her most substantial later roles came in the 1985 film Latino, where she played a Nicaraguan citizen who falls in love with a CIA advisor, showcasing her dramatic range in a critically praised but commercially unsuccessful political drama. Rather than continuing to chase elusive Hollywood success, Charles made a bold decision to leave the entertainment industry and pursue higher education, eventually transforming herself into an accomplished academic. She earned a bachelor's degree in psychology and theater from Antioch University, Los Angeles, followed by a master's degree in social work from New York University, before becoming a speech communication professor in the Chicano Studies Department at California State University, Northridge, where she was known as a tough but dedicated educator who genuinely cared about her students' success. In early 2011, Charles was diagnosed with lung cancer, despite never having been a smoker, and her condition required a lengthy hospital stay for pneumonia treatment. On August 3, 2011, Charles died at her Los Angeles home from complications related to her cancer battle at the age of 63, just 2 months after her Grease co-star Jeff Conaway had also passed away. Her death marked the loss of another member of the beloved Grease family and reminded fans that the actors who brought such joy to the screen had faced their own real-world struggles and challenges. Annette Charles's legacy extends beyond her iconic few minutes as Cha-Cha de Gregorio to encompass her dedication to education and her students, proving that there are many ways to make a lasting impact on the world, whether through memorable performances that entertain millions or through years of teaching that shapes individual lives, one student at a time. Dennis C. Stewart Leo Craterface. Balmuto, Dennis C. Stewart brought menace and charisma to the role of Leo Craterface. Balmudo, the leather-jacketed leader of the Scorpions gang who served as the primary antagonist to John Travolta's T-Birds in Grease, but his distinctive pockmarked face that earned him the nickname Craterface, both on and off screen, also made him a memorable character actor who understood that sometimes the most interesting roles came from playing the villain. Stewart's portrayal of the tough gang leader was so convincing that audiences never suspected they were watching a trained dancer and performer, whose real personality was far gentler than the hard-edged character he brought to life. Born Dennis Cleveland Stewart on July 29, 1947, in Los Angeles, California, he grew up in the heart of the entertainment industry during a time when Hollywood was experiencing major changes in the 1950s and 1960s. From an early age, Stewart was drawn to the performing arts, particularly dance, and he spent years developing his skills in local theater productions, where he learned to combine his natural athletic ability with dramatic expression. His powerful stage presence and willingness to take on challenging roles quickly gained him recognition in the Los Angeles theater scene, providing him with the foundation he would need to transition into film and television work. Stewart made his professional debut in 1977 with a small, uncredited role as a fisherman in the Disney film, but it was his work as a featured dancer in Screta Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in early 1978 that first brought him significant attention. In that Beatles-inspired musical film, Stewart was highly visible in the Maxwell's Silver Hammer sequence alongside Steve Martin, showcasing the dancing skills that would become one of his most valuable assets as a performer. His ability to combine acting with choreographed movement made him an ideal choice for the musical numbers that were becoming increasingly popular in late 1970s cinema. Later in 1978, Stewart landed the role that would define his career when he was cast as Leo Craterface, Balmudo, in Grease, where his naturally pockmarked complexion became a perfect fit for the character's nickname and tough guy image. As the leader of the Scorpions, the rival gang that competed with Danny Zuko's T-Birds for territory and respect, Stewart created a character who was genuinely intimidating but also had enough depth to avoid being a simple cartoon villain. His scenes opposite John Travolta crackled with tension, particularly during the climactic Thunder Road drag race sequence, and his chemistry with Annette Charles's Cha-Cha added another layer to the film's romantic complications. The success of Grease led to steady work for Stewart throughout the 1980s, including a return to the role of Leo in the 1982 sequel Grease 2, where his character had evolved to become the leader of the Cycle Lords motorcycle gang. While the sequel was not as successful as the original film, Stewart's performance remained a highlight, and he continued to find work in both television and film, appearing in popular series such as Hunter, MacGyver, The A-Team, Moonlighting, and Wonder Woman, often playing tough guys and villains who required both physical presence and acting ability. Stewart also appeared in several notable films during this period, including Zoot Suit in 1981, where he played a character called Swabby in the film adaptation of the acclaimed Broadway play, and D.C. Cab in 1983, demonstrating his range as an actor who could handle both dramatic and comedic material. Throughout his career, he maintained his reputation as a professional and reliable performer who brought energy and authenticity to every role, regardless of its size or the production's budget. In the early 1990s, Stewart faced the greatest challenge of his life when he was diagnosed with HIV in 1993, at a time when the disease still carried enormous stigma and limited treatment options. As an openly gay man who had lived quietly about his personal life during the less tolerant 1970s and 1980s, Stewart dealt with his diagnosis privately, continuing to work when possible while managing his health. The progression of his illness was swift, and within a year of his diagnosis, his condition had deteriorated significantly. On April 20, 1994, Dennis C. Stewart died from pneumonia complications related to AIDS at the age of 46, becoming one of the many talented individuals lost to the epidemic that devastated the entertainment industry during the 1980s and 1990s. He was buried at Rose Hills Memorial Park in Whittier, California, alongside his mother, Evelyn M. Stewart, leaving behind a legacy of memorable performances and the respect of colleagues who remembered him as a dedicated artist who brought professionalism and passion to every project he undertook. Dennis C. Stewart's brief but impactful career serves as a reminder that even supporting players can leave lasting impressions on audiences, and that behind every memorable screen villain lies a real person with their own struggles, dreams, and the courage to pursue their art despite the challenges life presents. Ed Burns, Vince Fontaine. Ed Burns brought the perfect combination of smooth charm and slightly sleazy appeal to his role as Vince Fontaine, the Dick Clark-inspired television host of National Bandstand, who oversees the pivotal hand jive dance contest in Greece. But audiences watching the film had no idea they were seeing a former teen idol who had once received 15,000 fan letters a week and scored a gold record with a novelty song about combing his hair. Burns' portrayal of the slick dance show host was a clever bit of casting that played on his own history as a 1950s television sensation, making his performance feel both authentic and subtly nostalgic for an era when he himself had been one of its biggest stars. Born Edward Byrne Breitenberger on July 30, 1932, in New York City, Burns came from a troubled family background that shaped his determination to escape into the world of entertainment. His father, Augustus, was an abusive alcoholic who died when Burns was just 13 years old, after which the young man dropped his father's surname in favor of Burns, which was based on his maternal grandfather's name, Edward Byrne, who had been a New York City fireman. Growing up poor and dealing with family dysfunction, Burns worked a variety of jobs, including driving an ambulance, roofing, and selling flowers, but he always harbored dreams of becoming an actor. At the age of 22, Burns packed up his few belongings and drove from New York to Los Angeles with just a few $100s and an ambitious dream of making it big in Hollywood, arriving in September 1955, on the very day that James Dean died in a car crash. After struggling with bit parts and minor roles for several years, Burns caught his big break when he was cast as a hired killer who compulsively combed his hair in the 1958 film Girl on the Run, which served as the pilot episode for what would become the television series 77 Sunset Strip. The character of Gerald Lloyd Cookson III, the jive-talking ultra-cool parking lot attendant at Dino's Lodge, who helped the private detectives with their cases, became an immediate sensation when 77 Sunset Strip premiered in 1958. Burns created the character's signature hair-combing gesture during filming when the director asked him to develop some business to show the character's coolness, and this simple action became one of television's most recognizable trademarks. Cookie's hipster slang, including phrases like, "Baby, you're the Ginchiest," became part of popular culture, and Burns found himself transformed into a national teen idol who rivaled the biggest rock stars of the day. The popularity of the Kookie character led to an unexpected musical career when Burns recorded "Kookie, Kookie Lend Me Your Comb" with actress and singer Connie Stevens in 1959, a novelty song that reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, sold over 1 million copies, and earned a gold record certification. At the height of his fame, Burns was receiving more fan mail than any star in Warner Brothers history, including legendary actors like Errol Flynn and James Cagney, and he appeared on 26 magazine covers in a single week. However, Burns' success came with significant restrictions, as his Warner Brothers contract prevented him from accepting roles in major films like Ocean's 11, North to Alaska, and Rio Bravo, and he was even passed over for the chance to play President John F. Kennedy in PT 109, because studio executives felt that someone known as Kookie couldn't convincingly portray a president. Frustrated by these limitations and his low salary of $500 per week, despite his massive popularity, Burns walked off the show during the second season and didn't return until 1960, when his character was promoted to partner in the detective agency. After 77 Sunset Strip ended its six-season run in 1964, Burns struggled to escape the typecasting that had made him famous, moving to Europe to star in spaghetti westerns and spy thrillers, before returning sporadically to Hollywood for guest appearances on television shows. His personal life during this period was marked by struggles with alcohol and drug addiction, which he detailed in his 1996 autobiography, Kooky No More, and it wasn't until 1978 that he landed a role in another major hit when director Randall Kleiser cast him as Vince Fontaine in Grease. On January 8, 2020, Ed Burns died unexpectedly of natural causes at his home in Santa Monica, California, at the age of 87, leaving behind his son Logan Burns, who works as a television news anchor in San Diego, and his longtime partner Catherine Gross. His death marked the end of a life that had experienced both the incredible highs of being one of television's first teen idols and the personal struggles that often accompany early fame, but his legacy lives on through his memorable performances and his contribution to the development of television as a medium that could create genuine cultural phenomena and transform unknown actors into household names practically overnight. Eve Arden, Principal McGee. Eve Arden's portrayal of Principal McGee in Grease was the perfect casting choice for an actress who had spent decades playing educators and authority figures, bringing her signature blend of sharp wit and underlying warmth to the role of the no-nonsense administrator who tried to keep the wild students of Rydell High in line while dealing with the chaos of a nationally televised dance contest. For audiences who remembered Arden from her Emmy-winning role as the beloved teacher Connie Brooks in Our Miss Brooks, seeing her return to a school setting 30 years later felt like watching a favorite teacher who had been promoted to principal and was still fighting the good fight against teenage misbehavior. Born Eunice Mary Quedens on April 30, 1908, in Mill Valley, California, Arden came from a broken home after her parents divorced when she was young, with her mother Lucille going into business for herself as a milliner, while raising her daughter largely as a single parent. Despite being sent to a Dominican convent school and later attending Tamalpais High School, Arden left formal education at age 16 to join a stock theater company, beginning a career that would span nearly 60 years and make her one of the most recognizable character actresses in American entertainment. Arden made her film debut under her real name in the 1929 backstage musical Song of Love, playing a wisecracking showgirl who becomes a rival to the film's star, a role that established the template for the sardonic, quick-witted characters she would play throughout her career. After changing her stage name in 1934 by combining Evening in Paris and Elizabeth Arden from cosmetics labels she saw, Arden gradually built a reputation as Hollywood's go-to actress for playing the heroine's smart, sophisticated best friend, who could deliver cutting one-liners with perfect deadpan timing. Her breakthrough film role came in 1937 with Stage Door, where she played opposite Katharine Hepburn as a wisecracking, fast-talking friend to the lead character, and this performance led to dozens of similar supporting roles over the next decade in films including At the Circus with the Marx Brothers, Comrade X with Clark Gable, and most memorably, Mildred Pierce in 1945, where her portrayal of Joan Crawford's cynical friend earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress and delivered one of her most famous lines about Crawford's terrible daughter. The role that truly made Arden a household name came in 1948 when she was cast as English teacher Connie Brooks in the radio version of Our Miss Brooks, a role she initially didn't want but which became the defining performance of her career. Arden played the sardonic but dedicated teacher who dealt with a bumbling principal, an unrequited crush on a shy biology teacher, and the daily challenges of educating teenagers for 9 years on radio and 4 years on television from 1952 to 1956, earning her the first ever Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a drama series in 1954. The character of Connie Brooks was groundbreaking for its time because it showed a working woman who was competent, independent, and funny without sacrificing her femininity or humanity, and Arden's portrayal was so convincing that she was made an honorary member of the National Education Association and received teaching job offers from real schools. The show's success led to a feature film version in 1956. But when Arden tried to follow up with The Eve Arden Show in 1957, it lasted only one season, and she spent the 1960s focusing on raising her family and making occasional guest appearances. Arden returned to television success with The Mothers-in-Law from 1967 to 1969, co-starring with Kay Ballard as feuding neighbors and in-laws, and she continued making guest appearances on popular shows, while also returning to the stage for productions of Hello, Dolly! And Auntie Mame. Her role as Principal McGee in Grease introduced her to a new generation of fans and was followed by an appearance in the 1982 sequel Grease 2, proving that her comedic timing and screen presence remained as sharp as ever. On November 12, 1990, Eve Arden died at her home in Beverly Hills, California, at the age of 82 from cardiac arrest related to arteriosclerotic heart disease, with 2 of her 4 children at her side. She had been battling cancer and heart problems for some time, and her death marked the end of a career that had touched multiple generations of audiences, who remembered her as the teacher they wished they had, or the friend they wanted to be. Eve Arden's legacy extends far beyond her memorable performances to encompass her role in changing how working women were portrayed on television, proving that female characters could be smart, funny, and independent while still being warm and relatable, paving the way for countless actresses who followed in her footsteps as strong, witty women who refused to be just decoration in someone else's story. Dodie Goodman's secretary Blanche Hodel. Dodie Goodman brought her trademark blend of scatterbrained charm and good-hearted bumbling to the role of Blanche Hodel, Principal McGee's well-meaning but hopelessly disorganized secretary in Grease, creating a character whose innocent confusion and eager-to-please attitude provided perfect comic relief alongside Eve Arden's more stern and authoritative principal. Goodman's portrayal of the secretary, who could never quite find the right paperwork or remember where she put important documents, was a masterclass in physical comedy that drew on decades of experience playing similar characters on Broadway, television, and in films, proving that even the smallest roles could be memorable when performed by an actress who understood how to find humor in everyday human frailty. Born Dolores Goodman on October 28, 1914, in Columbus, Ohio, she was the daughter of Leona and Dexter Goodman, who owned a small cigar factory, and she grew up with a sister named Rose and a brother named Dexter Jr. in a middle-class family that encouraged her early interest in the performing arts. After attending North High School in Columbus, where she would later be inducted into the school's Hall of Fame, Goodman pursued her dreams by studying dramatics at Northwestern University and taking dance classes at both the School of American Ballet and the Metropolitan Opera Ballet School, hoping to become a professional ballerina. Goodman made her way to New York in the late 1930s with dreams of dancing, initially joining the ballet company at Radio City Music Hall before transitioning to Broadway, where she made her debut in 1941 and spent the next decade and a half performing as a chorus member and dancer in numerous musicals including Something for the Boys, One Touch of Venus, Miss Liberty, Call Me Madam, and Wonderful Town. Her breakthrough moment came in 1955 when she stopped the show in off-Broadway's Shoestring Revue with her memorable performance of the novelty song, Someone's Been Sending Me Flowers, which showcased her unique combination of musical talent and comedic timing. This performance caught the attention of television host Jack Paar, who invited her to become a semi-regular on The Tonight Show when it began in 1957, where her ditzy persona, high-pitched voice, and seemingly spontaneous malaprops made her an immediate hit with audiences and earned her an Emmy nomination in 1958. However, Goodman's tendency to upstage Paar with her quick wit and ad-libbed responses eventually led to tension. And when Paar once quipped, "Give them enough rope," Goodman immediately responded, "And they'll skip," which was funny but undermined the host's authority, leading to her being dropped from the show in 1958. Undaunted by this setback, Goodman continued building her career throughout the 1960s and 1970s, appearing on other talk shows, game shows, and variety programs, while also returning to Broadway in productions like the 1961 revival of Once Upon a Mattress, where she played Princess Winifred the Woebegone, and Lorelei, with Carol Channing in 1974. Her television career reached new heights in the mid-1970s when she was cast as Martha Shumway, the mother of Louise Lasser's character in the groundbreaking soap opera parody Mary Hartman, where her character's conversations with plants and general air of confused optimism perfectly matched the show's surreal sensibility. The success of Mary Hartman led to her casting in Grease as Blanche Hodel, and she reprised the role in Grease 2 in 1982, while also appearing in other films like Splash in 1984, and maintaining a busy television schedule with guest appearances on shows like Different Strokes, where she played Aunt Sophia, and Punky Brewster, where she appeared as Punky's teacher. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Goodman continued working in theater, touring in productions of Nonsense and its sequels, where she played Sister Mary Amnesia, and later graduated to the role of Mother Superior. On June 22, 2008, Dodie Goodman died of natural causes at Inglewood Hospital and Medical Center in Inglewood, New Jersey, at the age of 93, having spent her final months at the Lillian Booth actor's home after declining health made independent living impossible. She never married and was survived by 7 nieces and nephews, 11 great-nieces and nephews, and 15 great-great-nieces and nephews, leaving behind a legacy of laughter and the memory of a performer who found joy in playing characters who might not have been the brightest but were always the most endearing people in the room. Dodie Goodman's career stands as a testament to the power of finding your niche and perfecting it, proving that an actress who specialized in playing scattered, well-meaning characters could build a lasting career by bringing genuine warmth and humanity to roles that could have easily been just one-dimensional comic relief. Sid Caesar, Coach Calhoun. Sid Caesar's appearance as Coach Calhoun in Grease may have been a small supporting role, but it represented the perfect casting of a comedy legend who had spent decades making people laugh, bringing his natural timing and physical humor to the part of the well-meaning athletic instructor who tries to help Danny Zuko become more of a jock to win Sandy's affections. For audiences who remembered Caesar from his groundbreaking television work in the 1950s, seeing him in the film was like watching a master craftsman apply his skills to a new generation's entertainment, proving that great comedy never goes out of style, and that even the smallest roles could benefit from the touch of a true professional. Born Isaac Sidney Caesar on September 8, 1922, in Yonkers, New York, to Jewish immigrant parents Max and Ida Caesar, who ran a 24-hour restaurant, young Sid learned early how to entertain people by mimicking the diverse clientele who came through their establishment, developing an ear for accents and languages that would become one of his greatest strengths as a performer. His father had arrived at Ellis Island from Poland, and family reports suggest that immigration officials gave him the surname Caesar, though some historians question whether names were actually changed at Ellis Island as commonly believed. Caesar's talent for mimicry and physical comedy led him into show business during World War II, when he served in the Coast Guard and was assigned to perform in military reviews, where he met producer Max Liebman, who would later help launch his television career. After the war, Caesar worked in nightclubs and appeared in the 1946 film version of Tars and Spars. But his real breakthrough came when television was just beginning to find its voice as a new medium, and he became one of the first major stars of the small screen. In 1950, Caesar began starring in Your Show of Shows, a 90-minute live television variety program that aired on Saturday nights and was watched by up to 60 million people, making him one of the biggest entertainment figures of the decade. The show was groundbreaking for its sophisticated sketch comedy, and Caesar's ability to perform live without a script, often improvising entire routines, established him as a master of the medium. His writing staff included future comedy legends Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner, Neil Simon, and Woody Allen, who all credited Caesar with teaching them the fundamentals of comedy writing and performance. Caesar's success continued with Caesar's Hour from 1954 to 1957. But the pressure of live television and the demands of constant creativity took a serious toll on his personal life, leading to struggles with alcohol and prescription drugs that he later detailed in his autobiography. Despite these challenges, Caesar remained active in television, film, and theater for decades, appearing in movies like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World in 1963, Mel Brooks's Silent Movie in 1976, and both Grease films, while also continuing to influence new generations of comedians who studied his work. Throughout his career, Caesar was nominated for 11 Emmy Awards and won 2, and he was widely regarded by his peers as one of the greatest sketch comedians who ever lived, with Carl Reiner calling him the ultimate, and Mel Brooks describing him as a giant, maybe the best comedian who ever practiced the trade. His influence extended far beyond his own performances to encompass his role in establishing television as a legitimate medium for sophisticated comedy and in training writers and performers who would dominate entertainment for the next several decades. On February 12, 2014, Sid Caesar died at his home in Beverly Hills, California, at the age of 91 after a brief illness, leaving behind a legacy that included not only his own memorable performances, but also his role as a mentor and influence on virtually every major comedian who came after him. His death marked the end of an era in comedy, but his influence continues through the countless performers and writers who learned their craft by watching him work and who carry forward the principles of intelligent, physical, character-based humor that he helped establish as the foundation of modern comedy. Joan Blondell v. Head Waitress. Joan Blondell's appearance as V, the head waitress at the Frosty Palace in Greece, represented one of the final performances of a Hollywood legend who had been entertaining audiences for nearly 50 years, bringing her trademark combination of streetwise wisdom and warm-hearted humor to the role of the diner employee who serves milkshakes and advice in equal measure. For movie fans who remembered Blondell from the golden age of Hollywood, seeing her in this small but memorable role was like watching a piece of cinema history come full circle, as one of Warner Brothers' biggest stars of the 1930s found herself working alongside a new generation of performers in what would become one of the most beloved musicals of all time. Born Rose Joan Blondell on August 30, 1906, in New York City to a vaudeville family, she spent her childhood touring the country as part of a performing troupe called the Bouncing Blondells, with her father Eddie working as a vaudeville comedian and her mother Katie performing alongside him. This early exposure to show business gave Blondell the confidence and stage presence that would serve her throughout her career. And by the time she was a teenager, she had already developed the quick wit and timing that would make her one of Hollywood's most reliable supporting actresses. After winning a beauty pageant in Dallas, Texas, in 1926 and placing 4th in the Miss America contest, Blondell made her way to New York, where she worked as a fashion model and eventually landed roles in Broadway productions including Penny Arcade in 1929, where she starred opposite James Cagney. When Warner Brothers decided to film the play as Sinner's Holiday in 1930, both Blondell and Cagney were brought to Hollywood to reprise their roles, launching a partnership that would result in 9 films together and establish Blondell as one of the studio's most valuable players. Throughout the 1930s and early 1940s, Blondell appeared in over 100 films and television productions, specializing in playing wisecracking, gold-digging, but ultimately good-hearted women who could deliver snappy dialogue with perfect timing. Her most famous films from this period included Gold Diggers of 1933, Footlight Parade, and Dames, where she often played opposite Dick Powell, whom she married in 1936 and remained married to for 10 years, and her performances helped define the pre-code era of Hollywood before censorship restrictions changed the types of characters she could play. Blondell received an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress for her role in The Blue Veil in 1951, and she continued working steadily in film and television throughout the 1950s and 1960s, appearing in notable productions like The Cincinnati Kid in 1965 and various television shows, while also occasionally returning to the stage for Broadway productions and regional theater work. Her later career was marked by her ability to adapt to changing times while maintaining the essential qualities that had made her a star, bringing depth and humanity to supporting roles that could have been merely functional. Near the end of her life, Blondell was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress for her performance in John Cassavetes' Opening Night in 1977, and she appeared in both Grease and Franco Zeffirelli's The Champ in 1979, proving that her talent remained as sharp as ever even as her health began to decline. She had been battling leukemia for some time, and the disease gradually weakened her, despite her determination to continue working and her reputation for professionalism that had sustained her through 5 decades in the entertainment industry. On December 25, 1979, Joan Blondell died from complications related to leukemia at the age of 73. Just 1 year after Grease was released, leaving behind a legacy that encompassed not only her own memorable performances, but also her role in helping to establish the template for the wisecracking, independent female characters who would become a staple of American cinema. Her death marked the end of a direct connection to Hollywood's golden age, but her influence continued through the countless actresses who followed in her footsteps, playing strong, witty women who refused to be just decoration in someone else's story. Alice Ghostly, Mrs. Murdoch, shop teacher. Alice Ghostly's appearance as Mrs. Murdoch, the auto shop teacher at Rydell High in Greece, was a perfect example of how a seasoned character actress could bring depth and authenticity to even the smallest roles, using her decades of experience playing eccentric but lovable characters to create a believable educator who presided over the garage where the T-Birds worked on their cars. For television audiences who knew Ghostly best as the bumbling witch Esmeralda on Bewitched, or the quirky Bernice on Designing Women, seeing her in the role of a practical, no-nonsense shop teacher demonstrated her remarkable range as a performer who could adapt her natural comic timing to any character or situation. Born Alice Margaret Ghostly on August 14, 1923, at a train station in the tiny town of Eve, Missouri, where her father Harry worked as a telegraph operator, she spent her early years moving between small towns in the Midwest before her family settled in Henrietta, Oklahoma, where she attended high school and first discovered her love of performing. After graduating in 1941, she attended the University of Oklahoma to study drama and English, but she left college before finishing her degree to pursue her theatrical dreams in New York City, where she teamed up with her sister Gladys to form a singing and comedy act called the Ghostly Sisters. Ghostly made her Broadway debut in Leonard Sillman's New Faces of 1952, where she gained critical acclaim for singing The Boston Beguine, a satirical send-up of proper Bostonians that became her signature song and showcased her ability to combine musical talent with sharp comedic timing. The success of this performance led to more Broadway opportunities, including roles in A Thurber Carnival in 1960 and The Beauty Part in 1962, which earned her a Tony Award nomination for Best Featured Actress in a Play, and her dramatic performance in Lorraine Hansberry's The Sign in Sidney Brustein's Window in 1964, which won her the Tony Award for Best Featured Actress. While Ghostly continued working on Broadway throughout the 1960s, she also began building a successful television career, becoming familiar to millions of viewers as Esmeralda, the well-meaning but magically challenged witch who served as housekeeper and babysitter to the Stevens family on Bewitched from 1969 to 1972. Her character was created to replace the role previously played by Marion Lorne, and Ghostly brought a unique combination of sweetness and confusion to the part, making Esmeralda one of the most beloved supporting characters on the show and establishing her as a television favorite. Following Bewitched, Ghostly continued working steadily in television and film, appearing in movies like To Kill a Mockingbird in 1962, where she played the neighborhood gossip Stephanie Crawford, and later in her career Grease in 1978, while also maintaining a successful television career with guest appearances on numerous shows and a starring role as Bernice Clifton on Designing Women from 1986 to 1993, which earned her an Emmy nomination for Best Supporting Actress in a comedy series in 1992. In her later years, Ghostly faced serious health challenges, including a battle with colon cancer and the effects of several strokes that gradually weakened her, but she continued working when possible and remained active in the entertainment community until her health made it impossible to continue. She had been married to Italian-born actor Felice Orlandi from 1953 until his death from lung cancer in 2003, and the loss of her longtime partner marked the beginning of a difficult period in her life as her own health began to decline. On September 21, 2007, Alice Ghostly died at her home in Studio City, California, at the age of 81, having spent her final years battling the combined effects of colon cancer and multiple strokes, while being cared for by family and friends who remembered her as a generous and kind person whose on-screen persona as a sweet, confused character reflected her real-life warmth and gentleness. Her death marked the end of a career that had spanned 6 decades and had brought joy to millions of people who remembered her fondly as the witch who couldn't quite get her spells right, or the neighbor who always meant well even when things went wrong.